Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 10 of 13. This is Soul Lab Come Together group, and we are entering the first phase of Earth today, or this week actually. This is usually I do a Tuesday live video, and today it's Wednesday, midweek, and we've started our ascension into the air realm, which is very nice. A couple of, maybe like 4 or 5 days ago, we had our first butterfly hatch, a monarch butterfly. My son found in one of the bushes, and we hatched it and went through this whole stage. Beautiful. It was in this beautiful chrysalis, and it looked like a jewel, and it started turning kind of brown, and then from green to brown and translucent, and you could see this well-formed butterfly inside of this chrysalis, just ready to come out. And it was really fun to watch because it really does exemplify this movement into the air realm, where the earth realm is very much like creating a cocoon, in a certain way, being in the womb. We're bringing everything together. We're trying to, plant this new seed or this new way for ourselves, and it has to go through this whole organizing internally process of, becoming something. So we just left the final phase of Earth, where it's become something, right? It's sort of like a baby, before it's born. It's whole in itself, but it's still not out in the world. It hasn't gone through the birthing process. So the air realm represents that moment that butterfly comes out of the chrysalis, right? And the moment we come out into the world, and whatever new endeavor that we are bringing into the world. So air realm is a fantastic place to be. In alchemy they talk about it as the realm of sublimatio. It's sublime. It's bringing things to a higher state of consciousness, to a higher state of awareness. It's being very mindful. And it's interesting how they bring in not just being mindful, but also having a mindful way through the world. But in this first phase of air, from an astrological perspective, it is also seen as looked at in terms of how do we relate to each other, in our interpersonal relationships with another person. How do we relate to each other as individuals, as two or more sort of thing. And so it's a good time to look at the dynamics, the patterns in which you relate to other people, one-on-one, whether it's your lover, your partner, your child, or your friend, or whoever it is. When you're in these interpersonal dynamics, what tends to come up for you? It's a good time to examine that, both the shadowy side, like what are some of the challenges I tend to have with this certain type of person, or in these certain types of relationships, and also what are the gifts that I bring to them, what are some of the strengths that I bring to these relationships. And there's so many incredible processes and programs and ways of perceiving how to be in relationship, how to bring more compassion into your relationships, more empathy, more awareness, more presence, more listening, all these good things. Certainly as I've been going through and exploring this area for this week, I've been noticing a lot of very challenging insights about myself and the way I relate to my partner, or to other people. And I see some of the shadowy stuff that comes through, and at first it's like a little jolting. It's like, oh God, it's hard enough to see that in other people, much less myself. And in true form, the ideal for that is to then look and see what you have, or what I have, in terms of how to really be with that in a transformative way. So really be with that part of myself that is relating to another in a not so good way, whether it's being checked out or being aggressive or being passive aggressive, or there's a many different dynamics which we find ourselves in. And in my practice, a lot of it is very archetypal, so we look at these ways of relating to others as parts of ourselves. So it's like in the context of relationship, in other words, these sort of dynamics come up and this part of me comes up. It doesn't come up when I'm listening to music and I'm on my own, or it doesn't come up when I'm studying. It doesn't come up when I'm at a show or something like that. It comes up in these certain contexts. But when I'm in these contexts, a certain side of me definitely comes up, and it's identifiable, and it certainly can be seen as a part of me and as a very particular character that arises, like an icon getting clicked on the desktop. In this context, this part of me rises up and does what it does. And so Air Realm's saying, let's be more conscious of how we're relating and the patterns in which we relate to ourselves and the world, the inner relationships and the outer relationships. And really be mindful in the ways that what we have learned to offer transformation for these areas. It's not enough just to know about these challenges or these opportunities, but it's more a matter of being able to take that to the next level and say, well, let's do something with what's there, so we can sublimate, we can rise up to a higher level of function in this key area as I'm seeing it. So a lot of wonderful opportunities with the Air Realm to be mindful and to have really understand our maps of relating to the world. Our maps, in a certain way can be seen symbolically as coming from the Earth Realm. In the Taoist work, the Earth Realm is considered that phase that we go through that it's kind of two-dimensional in a sense, like we're planning it out. When we get into the air, this is the way we'll do our thing. If you're opening up a healing center, the Air Realm is where you're opening the doors and you're running the healing center day to day, relating to employees and customers and clients and that sort of thing. But the Earth Realm is where you spend all your time doing your business strategies, doing all your planning and really getting it going, beta testing it, having dry rehearsals with all your employees before you open the doors. So, it could be all prepared, or it's a new process that you're bringing into your practice where you really are studied, you've trained, and you've practiced enough, and you really have it down. And the Air Realm is where you then present it and say, okay, now I officially am offering this process or this treatment. So Air Realm, this is where we really step into our walking the walk sort of thing, walking the talk, where we really embrace owning our journey in our relationships with others, and our mindfulness and our mapping of our relationship is really based on something very well thought out in the Earth Realm, and that is created and brought together by what we discovered in the Water Realm, which is our inner psychic world and our passions, the inner passions and inner visions stuff. And it comes from the Fire Realm, which is looking at our outward focused, future-oriented vision of what could be possible, and where are all the resources in the world that can support me, and what does the world need from me, and all that good stuff. That very visionary outer possibilities and inner potentials and all this meaning and beliefs and idealism all comes together in the Earth Realm to create a plan. And now we're in the Air Realm, where we can now open the curtains and we're on stage. We are engaging ourselves in a very mindful way with all of our relations, not walking some sort or dancing some sort of unconscious dance with each other anymore. We recognize the patterns, and we're utilizing the tools that we have found for ourselves to transform these ways of relating to a higher standard. So in that way, one of the processes I use is a with clients to help them move through things, especially when they're dealing with difficult relationships, is a screening technique where I imagine them see a screen, you know, just kind of like Minority Report, you put up a screen, and then on that screen you see yourself first, and you kind of just let it appear energetically as it wants to appear. It's just imagining. You only have to imagine, but if you were to imagine seeing yourself there, what do you imagine you'd see on that screen? The screen kind of helps contain everything. So, and we're used to looking at screens. I'm looking at one now. And so you see yourself maybe on the left side, and then you bring your the person you're having a challenge with, or that you want to know more about the dynamics in your relationship. You'll bring them up on, let's say, the right side of the screen. So then you see them on the screen, and you look back at yourself, and you see, you notice maybe if there's any changes in your affect, your posture, your, you know, the elements, the energy, the emotional state, the physical state, or even the mental state as you imagine seeing yourself there. What has changed since that other person now appears on the screen? That's interesting insight all its own. But then you watch for, you know, the way that they behave, whatever kind of caricaturized motion they're making, or whatever's going on there, you watch them for a moment, you get a sense of something, and it's speaking to a deeper part, right? That's the beauty of the imaginal work, is it really isn't speaking directly to the linear logical brain. It's speaking to a part that goes, well, that's curious. I don't know what that means. I'm sure it means something, right? And so you're watching it, and you watch yourself, and you watch them, and then you watch the third, which is the relationship, the dance, the pattern that seems to be drawing both of you into this relationship. And so you see the dance, and you kind of back up, and you watch it. And generally you want to watch it till you feel that it's no longer kind of like you're analyzing it, it's kind of here, and then it drops into the heart and the belly. You watch it long enough to where all of a sudden it just hits you on a very visceral level, like, wow, okay, I see that. I don't know exactly what it means, but on some level I kind of do. I get the feeling for it. Once you hit that point, now you're in sort of an empathic connection with the dynamics of that relationship, right? So the next phase of it is being able to transform it. You know, it's enough to see what it is that's very informative. You go, yeah, that's the dynamics, and it's something I'm familiar with on some levels. Now I see it pretty symbolically, and that's pretty cool. The next thing is, how do you take that and transform it into something higher, right? How do you transform it into an ideal way of relating? Especially since we tend not to really know what that is, right? Part of the problem is we don't know how to be in better relationships, and the dynamics that we're engaging are really mostly subconscious dynamics that have been there for who knows how long. How they got there, who knows? But they're there, and you see it. Yes, that's how I'm doing it. So the goal of this is to access maybe some higher state of consciousness that knows how to do it. The imaginal work really kind of holds a place for that, right? It says, don't worry, you don't need to know, it's kind of a mystery. But if we imagine that something higher comes through to support this transformation, what would we do to invite that in? So in my practice, I simplified it, kind of a more Taoist approach. I imagine above myself and above the other person, above the relationship, the swirling cosmos, right? And because in my mind, symbolically, as I'm understanding it, the cosmos is the entire swirling cosmos. It's the entire, from beginning, middle, end. It's all of creation, past, present, future, all of it in perfect harmony in this swirling, spiraling, toroidal pattern. So if there's going to be any wisdom that can support me and help me, it's going to be coming from there. So I invite it in, I imagine it bathing over me, I imagine it bathing over them, and I imagine it bathing over our relationship, right? In a certain way, it's like a visual form of Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, and it's very much a shamanic transformative process where you're essentially saying, I love you, there's love here, connection. And then you say, I forgive you for what you've done, whatever that might be, even if I don't know what it is. Whatever dynamics are there that are incongruent, I forgive that, let it go. And then you say, please forgive me, and you see them letting go. So when I see this energy flowing from the heavens over these three beings, if you will, I see them all sort of transforming. And it's sort of like Frog the Prince sort of thing, you know. Everyone transforms, and it's just imaginative experience. And then, like a supernova, the whole thing transforms, and something new comes forward. Something new transforms. And the beauty is that you can stay in the state of wonderment, saying, I don't know what it's going to be, but I do know that something's going to happen here. And then you see the transformation, which is really pretty cool. And on a deep level, a deep mindful level, you're getting what that shift in dynamic is, but also in the field, something has shifted in the relationship. So, you know, for clients, they say, oh, it's so wonderful to have seen that. I just don't know how I'm going to make that happen logically. Part of the mystery and magic of it is that something in that experience, because it's on such a field level, a mindful level, that, and on a very visceral level, kinesthetic, basic self level, something does shift within you, which shifts everything else. So they tend to go home and see that the relationship dynamics have changed, even though they haven't done anything externally or overtly directed to that relationship to change it. So doing the work actually makes these big changes, and that's key to a lot of the shamanic work and a lot of the distant healing work and stuff like that, is this understanding that the imaginal work is very powerful, and it taps into all of our relations. And we know a lot of times by just trying to do sheer force of trying to logically fix these relationships of ours that it can be very challenging and very difficult to enter into. Whereas in the imaginal work, you can imagine very easily things changing in your own time, and then you get the pleasure of looking back at it and saying, oh yeah, some amazing things have changed. So that's one of the ways, one of the many ways that I use to help, once we see that there's this incongruent relationship, to bring it into harmony, and you watch it change and you say, oh, that's beautiful, I like what they're doing. It's a new type of dance, you know, it's a new way of relating. And that feeds into your conscious, subconscious self and your higher conscious self. They're all in congruence now, saying, yeah, this is how I would really like to be in relationship to them on this very kind of a dynamic level. And eventually your mind will start putting words to it and concepts to it. Well, what that is this. But for now, it's just enough, a very powerful thing, just to see it in action. Something very field-oriented, very powerful about that. So anyway, that's one of the ways that I work with relationship stuff, whether it's always coming back to an inner relationship, right? You know, it gets into that thing about projection out. Whenever there's challenges out there, or even when everything's really good, it's still reflective of this same similar relationship with some inner part of yourself that is reflective or similar to this outer holder or, you know, model for that. So, Air 1, right? Mindfulness, being aware that you're in the world, that you have relationships. It's getting us outside of this sort of insular little cocoon we've been in, and it's inviting us to really kind of dive into synapsing with other people, connecting with other people, and living our truth through these relationships, and using relationships as an opportunity to both test our coming into coherence, but also being a receptive receiver, sort of that, you know, looking for balance, a win-win situation. How do I now hold space for the other person? It's not all about me and what I'm projecting and what I'm experiencing. How can I be more empathically present so that I can see the relationship through their eyes, I can see their world through their eyes, and this relationship levels up, it sublimates to this higher level where now this relationship is very much a spiritual kinship, a sisterhood, a brotherhood, a connection, you know. We can be each other's keepers in this way. So we hold space and say, I'm willing to hold space for you, and whatever challenges we've had, I forgive them, I love you, I let it go, please let go of whatever you're holding against me, so that we can shift the God between us to something higher, and so that we become a model, a vessel in the field. You know, the one becomes a two, and the two then brings a third, which is the God between, and then all things start to come from that, right? So it's a wonderful opportunity to see each of your relationships, every person you interact with, as an opportunity to bring the God between and within together, right? And so that's what we're focusing on for the week. There's a lot of material on this, so if you want, it has some really good stuff on insights into relationships. Please share them. I've shared quite a bit, but there's so much more. I'm kind of learning how to eke it out, and I just sort of flood it because it, it goes right into the feed. But we have a lot of material when we actually get SolLab, the actual platform, born into the air, which should be, we're in the process of working on now. So anyway, I think that is pretty much it in terms of the air realm. I know for myself, that's, astrologically, I look at my chart, and that's where a lot of my challenges are, the Chiron and Saturn stuff and Piscean stuff. And before it seemed so odd and abstract, but now I understand that there is it is reflective of my own challenges with interpersonal relationships, and you can either choose to be a victim of it, you can choose to ignore it, you can run from it, or you can fear what it's going to do to you ultimately, what this relationship will do. You can fight it, or you can choose to transform it. And so much of this work is about entering into that state of what I consider shamanic state of being the one who's willing to hold space for transformation in your relationships with parts of yourself and the world out there. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'm going to be adding more stuff about the alchemy of it, about the symbolic sides of it, but also offer some really cool articles and processes around transforming relationships, and also the other side of that is getting to a higher state of consciousness and how to really kind of level up in that way. So I'm in New Orleans now, and it's so different than Connecticut right now. It's nice and warm and hot, as you can probably tell, and just ready to start a day and enter into a mindful state with each of my clients. And I'm learning so much from what all of you have been sharing with me, and look forward to much more. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.